Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I am joined today with Andy. Owen just texted, said he couldn't make it. Owen, I hope your wife is doing well. But that being said, Andy, this is, I think, your second Draft Professor podcast. Welcome back. And I know that we're going to be seeing more of you, but how are you today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I am doing pretty good. So Andy is a Colorado fan. He will be podcasting with the Draft Professors on Tuesdays. And you'll start to see Andy and Randall about halfway through August start to take over the Tuesday time slot. But we are here on a Wednesday. We are here to cover the Colorado football team. So Andy, what's your outlook for the Colorado team this year?
Going into their second season back in the Big 12, third season of the Deion era. Obviously, a lot of headlines come with that. But I think this is a strong team. I think it's the deepest team in the Deion Sanders era. Best offensive line, I would say. But the main question lies on how do they look without Shedeur? How do they look without Travis Hunter? There was Jimmy Horn Jr., LeJounte Wester, who were drafted in the receiver room. Will Shepard signed as a UDFA by the Green Bay Packers. And overall, some defensive talent lost in the draft and portal. So it'll be really interesting to see how they come back from that.
Yeah, so Colorado was really active in the portal, correct?
Yeah, they have been in every season of the Deion era so far.
Okay. So how many of the players that we're going to be talking about were recruited by Colorado versus acquired in the portal?
Out of the guys we are going to be talking about, I believe just one of them.
Just one was recruited?
Yeah, as a high schooler. Yeah, I believe just one of them, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Definitely. It's definitely a new era of college football.
Absolutely.
So one of the players on our list is quarterback Kaidon Salter. Now, we typically start the shows off with the quarterbacks because that's just the way football is, right? If there's a quarterback, we got to talk about them first. Durs gave a good comp for Salter. He said, if Deion Sanders had a son that played quarterback, it would be Kaidon Salter.
You would picture it to be him. Yeah, you wouldn't picture it to be, Shedeur, who is more of a pocket passer. You would picture it to be Kaidon Salter, who thrives out of structure and can't really play in structure to save his life.
Yeah, so tell us, what is your assessment of Kaidon Salter from a draft perspective?
From a draft perspective, I have a lot of questions. Again, he plays well out of structure, but how can he play in structure? That's the thing I like to see in NFL quarterback prospects. But he's an electric dual threat quarterback. He has a quick trigger of an arm to all levels of the field. He oozes with pure arm talent. But where I have some pauses, he's undersized by NFL metrics, can't play in structure. And my fear is that he's kind of a one-read quarterback, and that thrives at the college level, but when you get to the NFL, more complex defenses are thrown at you, it gets a little shaky.
Yep. And we want to emphasize with Kaidon Salter, he is a transfer into Colorado, correct? So I believe he came from Liberty?
Yeah. Very successful quarterback at Liberty.
He has not won the Colorado quarterback competition. So even though we're starting with the quarterback, we can't even guarantee this podcast is being recorded at the end of July. Andy, you said Colorado summer practice begins. Is it this week or next week?
It's on Monday. The camp will begin. Yeah. And we'll really start to hear more there.
Yeah. So we are live, but we're live about 4 or 5 days before summer camp resumes. But there's a chance of Kaidon Salter. The transfer from Liberty to Colorado isn't even the Colorado starting quarterback. But if he is, you are getting an electric athlete.
Absolutely.
Right. This isn't just a scrambling quarterback. This is a quarterback that if he gets a step on you, you're not catching him.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, just a lot of talent overall. He's led Liberty to an undefeated season before, so.
Yeah. So, like I said, we always start with the quarterback when possible. But the highest player on your board for Colorado is cornerback DJ McKinney. What do you want to tell everybody in the draft community about Colorado cornerback DJ McKinney?
Man, DJ McKinney was a guy who caught my eye last year when he transferred into Colorado and won the cornerback 2 spot alongside Travis Hunter. He has a ton of pure athletic talent. I believe he was 92nd percentile in length for a corner, which is just remarkable. Really good ball skills, generated a ton of opportunities on ball and got 3 interceptions this past season. One of them that was a pick 6. He consistently jams receivers at the line of scrimmage, posing a very good press corner skill set. Sky high motor, he'll go step for step every single rep, or he'll be very active in run support, good tackler. He's good in zone and man, very well rounded. And, his bread and butter is just forcing receivers out of plays. His job is, if you can get a receiver out of a play, force him to have no impact on the play, he won. And he does that a lot. The main drawbacks with him are he can get too handsy down the field. And at times he didn't turn his head in time and led to a bad pass interference call or a bad touchdown on him, which when those are your main 2 weaknesses, I feel like that's a good thing because those are things that we've seen corners get better from, especially in their junior season, which DJ McKinney will be going into. But I do think this is a guy who early declares at the end of the season and could be a first-round pick.
Yeah, so love hearing that about the corners. Some people are down on the corner class, and we're about to do a top 20 cornerback show with Ian Cummings and Dalton Miller, and I'm curious to hear their opinions on the corner class. Yeah. But it's good to hear that even if McKinney is even if he isn't round 1, he's top 50, top 64 capable. So that's good to hear that there are corners worth talking about.
Absolutely, yeah.
So who is the next highest Colorado player on your board?
The next highest on my board is Samuel Okunlola, an edge who was a former Pitt transfer. This is a guy who I think is going to end up as a top 100 player for me out of the summer. Quite possibly the bendiest edge rusher I've watched so far in the class. Like, his bend is elite, very high-end athleticism, consistently pushes the pocket to pressure quarterbacks, good frame at 6'4", 250 pounds with, I think, the ability to add on mass to that. Very good array of pass rush moves, mixes it up well, good counter moves. Mainly the drawbacks with him are very low finishing production. I believe he only had 3 sacks this past season. And I think he needs to display a little bit more play strength to be considered like an elite edge prospect. But what you want from a really good edge prospect is there. I mean, like I said, elite bend, high-end athleticism, pushes the pocket, good moves. Like, this guy will consistently, even if he's not getting the finishes, he'll consistently rack up the pressures. And I wouldn't be surprised if this year he takes a monumental jump in the finishing because of how many pure opportunities he generates.
So, a couple questions. So, first of all, Hank, good to see you in the chat. And Andy, for Okunlola, how would you compare him to Shamar Stewart?
I definitely think they're different in terms of, I thought, Shamar with that frame at Texas A&M, granted, we never really know because of just Texas A&M. I mean, they turned Nick Scorton into a 280-pound edge rusher when I liked him more at 240. They turned Shamar Stewart into a 280-pound edge rusher when I liked him more at what he is now, which is like 250 or 260. But last year in college, Shamar Stewart was more of a power guy to where Okunlola is more of a finesse guy. And we'll see just how that is, but I think that's mainly a scheme thing from Colorado. I was pretty high on Shamar through last year's through last year's draft process. But with a good year, I mean, Okunlola can definitely get up there. Again, like I said, I think the finishing production will get better, but he has a lot of great tools.
Yep. And one of the things that I have heard on this edge class, feel free to weigh in, is there's either a lot of big power guys or there's a lot of quicker, bendy guys, but there really isn't a player that people are finding right now that does both. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's definitely
edge class?
That's definitely a valid assessment. I think it's one of those things that with a good year, I think somebody can show that off. Like Keldrick Falk could add a little bit more finesse to his game this year, and I wouldn't be surprised. TJ Parker, I think TJ Parker was pretty well rounded. I would consider him to be that guy, and TJ Parker is a top 6 player for me in this class. But yeah, that's a fair assessment. I mean, I haven't found a guy that's like a superstar in every element.
Okay. And then you said Okunlola, you said is pushing top 100. He may not be there now for you, but he's going to be right, like between like 90 and 110, you think?
Yeah, he'll be in that range for sure. He's at the moment, he's a top 15 edge rusher for me in the class. So,
okay. And then the rest of the players that we're about to cover, this is what I would call a draft professor special, because we try here to focus on players that are drafted in rounds 1 through 5. So I believe from what Andy told me pre-show, most of the guys that we're about to talk about are going to be like right now he has them graded like round 4 or 5. So they're draftable. You just need to wait till day 3 to hear their name called. But the next player you have is Jaheim Oatis.
Yeah, Jaheim Oatis. Alabama transfer, redshirted last year, which I thought was odd at the time, and then hit the portal after the year. I believe it was a requested redshirt, or I don't really know. It may have been like a mutual terms to redshirt and leave. But when he has been on the field, he shows elite play size and strength, really good anchor, violent hands at the point of attack, high overall football IQ to find lanes and take them when they're there, get a good pressure as a result, pushes the pocket at a good rate to pressure quarterbacks. The weaknesses here are some pad level raise issues. Weight management will be crucial at the NFL. I'm pretty sure that's why he left Alabama. Is he just didn't fit Alabama. They didn't have a playing role for him, and it just went the wrong way for him at Alabama towards the end of their tenure. But now at Colorado, I think he's a guaranteed starter on this line. I think he's the D tackle 1 in the 4 deep rotation. He overall needs refinement as a pass rusher, but he'll have the opportunity this year. Yeah, I liked Oatis quite a bit. There's not a lot on him because it's hard to go back. Like you have to go back to 2023 to watch him. And when you have to do that for a draft prospect, it's tough. So this will be a big time make or break year for him. But currently I see him as a 4th round guy, and we'll see where that is at the end of the season.
Give me a second. So Tracks and Power, I see you in the chat. If you look on X, I added you to a group chat, and there is a link in the group chat to join the podcast on camera if you so choose. So I like that on Oatis, and you're not the only one, I believe, who has him. I think where I see you grade him is where I've seen others grade him. So it sounds like there's a fair assessment. And again, agreed also that a lot of what we deal with in the summer for the audience is what Andy just said. So Oatis didn't play last season. So there's not a lot of 24 tape. So we would have to go back 2 seasons. And, the difference between a player, I don't know how old Oatis is, but the difference between the age of 19 and the age of 21 is significant, right? Your body is growing and things of that nature. So it is, a lot of what we do here is a projection. We're making sure that we have the right players on our radar. And what you will see Draft Professor do is starting halfway through October, we reassess everything from the summer and we start breaking the players down using 2025 game tape to update the evaluations. So, so the next player is Edge Arden Walker. What do you want to share about Arden Walker?
Yeah, I have a similar grade on Walker that I did on Oatis, and that's 4th round. So I think he's sort of near Okunlola in terms of grade. I just went Okunlola with the higher grade because I think he has a little bit more upside. But Arden Walker, he has a great combination of speed and strength. He bursts well off the line of scrimmage, high motor with great effort through every rep. He shrugs past offensive linemen with very surprising and abrupt power. Most of his weaknesses come with poor bend, like lower body flexibility, and poor pass rush moves and counters. Stuff that he can show improvement in this year. And then the production, I think, was only 4 sacks this past year in a deeper edge rotation, but now he'll be a top 2 guy alongside Okunlola, who we just were talking about. So I do think we could be talking about Arden in a better way come the end of this season as a, early 4th round, or maybe even scratches into day 2, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. And do you think Okunlola and Walker will be the 2 starting edges?
Yeah, absolutely at this point, because I think Keaten Wade, who we will talk about a little bit later, he was great in like a 3rd kind of edge rusher role, which I think he'll remain in this year. And then Quency Wiggins, who we may touch on later, but I just have not seen anything on him because he has not really played. But he has the frame to be a superstar. But yeah, in terms of starters, I think Okunlola and Arden Walker is the safe way to go for Colorado this year.
Okay, and then the second offensive player that we're going to talk about is wide receiver Omarion Miller. What would you like to share with everybody about Omarion Miller?
Yeah, he is probably the player I'm most excited to see on Colorado this year, because it's tough to grade him on an NFL note. I mean, he was the wide receiver 5 last season behind Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, Will Shepard, and LeJontay Wester, all guys who are now in the NFL. So Omarion Miller takes a massive step from wide receiver 5 to wide receiver 1, and I could not be more excited for it. He has a diverse route tree, and he's an effective route runner, good catch radius, rapid acceleration off the line of scrimmage, carries it through his rep, solid yak ability. I mean, this guy had some jaw-dropping touchdowns when he was in the game last year. He just made plays whenever he was on the field. It was really exciting to see. But like I mentioned, probably the biggest question mark, and I noted as a weakness because we just don't know yet, is very limited play time. I think he had 227 yards last season, so we just don't really know. And he's a well-rounded receiver, but he lacks any elite traits. And that's something, again, we could see get better as we see a lot more tape on him this year and a lot more targets going his way. But I am so excited to watch Omarion Miller.
And then we have nickelback Preston Hodge. What would you like to share with everybody on Preston Hodge?
Yeah, Preston Hodge is an interesting one. Initially, I thought that was going to be an NFL guy last year because we just didn't know with the Pavia ruling about the JUCO players and FCS players going back for a 6th season. But Preston Hodge was granted that, so now he's back for his 6th collegiate season at Colorado. I forgot where he was initially. I'm blanking on that. But I have around a 5th to 6th round grade on him at the moment. He generates good plays on ball. He's a very smart player with good nuance for the position, and in zone and man, he is very well-rounded. He anticipates wide receivers' routes at a good level, and he has good change of direction and recovery ability. The things that separate him and make him really a nickel are he doesn't jam receivers at the line of scrimmage, so he has really no role in press coverage. He lacks big-time speed. When he's on the outside going against an elite receiver, it's tough for him to go step for step. And honestly, his skill set could better suit a box safety in the NFL. I do think he will stick at nickel. He is Colorado's starting nickel this season. And I do think he could. I do think he is a day 3 guy right now. And we'll see if that changes much. But I think he's one of those guys that we're just going to have the same report on all season long, just because there is so much tape about him. I don't know if the ceiling's that high, but I'm excited to see him for sure. Midday 3.
So Owen, it's good to see you in the chat. So, whoops, there it is. So Owen, when he was watching his tape for the show, thinks that Walker and Oatis are going to be the top defensive prospect out of this list. What do you think of that, Andy?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, if Jaheim Oatis puts together a really good season, I think there's a case for him going in the first round just because, again, we don't know that much about him to where if he has a really elite season, I think it'll just make him that good. Definitely a big question mark for now, but I could absolutely see where he's coming from on that. And then Arden Walker, I really like too. One of those guys that I think the production's going to really improve this year going into a very big role on the defensive side of the ball this year, taking a step up. I could see those 4 sacks go into 8, 9, or maybe even 10 with a really good season. So, yeah, I could definitely see that.
Okay. So, at this point, we have covered 7 Colorado players with a draftable grade from Andy. Andy, you said the 8th player on your list was guard Zy Crisler. But at this point, we're dropping down the player board a little bit. What do you want to tell everybody about Zy Crisler, the guard from Colorado?
Just transferring in from Illinois. He was an all Big Ten honorable mention there. So he has some solid tape out there. An elite guard frame at 6'6", 340 pounds. Just a very intimidating man. Very powerful in run blocking. Good swing tackle versatility in zone. I think that's a very solid thing for him in terms of making an NFL roster, being a really good depth option. And he's going to be a 4-year. This is his 4th year being a collegiate starter, which is a very valuable thing. The biggest weakness I saw is his anchor got destroyed by power rushers. On his pad level raises a bit too much. Footwork needs some work. Overall, I get excited here because he is probably, unless I'm forgetting someone, he's probably the best guard Colorado's had in the Deion Sanders era. But at the moment, until I see more, I'm giving him a priority UFA grade. Just there's some concerns I have here, but I do like the upside here for this season.
Okay. So that's the top 8 from Colorado. What do you think of this comment from Owen?
Yeah, I mean, that's very fair. I think Okunlola, me giving him like a 3rd to 4th round grade, that's definitely a projection on my end just by, looking at some traits I really like in edge rushers. But yeah, Arden Walker definitely has the physical ability and frame and all of that to grow into his role more. But ultimately, I do like them both as NFL prospects. Like I said, 3rd to 4th on Okunlola, 4th on Walker. And I do think both of them could raise over the course of the season. Both guys that I could see go day 2 even.
Yeah. So I know EJ on Draft Professor podcast on Thursdays really likes Okunlola as well. So because he was even retweeting this podcast because we were talking about one of the players that he likes. So EJ, if you're out there listening, I'll see you tomorrow on a podcast coming soon to a computer near you. So Andy, why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself to the Draft Professor audience. We have Steve and Owen here, and then who else did I see? And Hank, who are in the group chat, and you will probably be podcasting with all of them sooner or later this draft cycle. But feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Andy NFL with 2 Y's on Twitter. I also have a Substack, Andy NFL, where I do top 5 positional rankings. I'm working on getting a running back one out either Thursday or Friday. We're just rolling through that all summer, and I'm very active on Twitter /X. Just talking through the draft, posting clips, things I like, all that fun stuff.
Well, thank you. For those of you listening, if you're a Colorado fan, for example, and you have not seen a Draft Professor podcast before, thank you for stopping by. We have daily draft content. If you want more, follow the channel right here at NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic. That's draft, and it would be Draft Professor on YouTube, Draft Professor on Twitter. And we also publish the podcast to Spotify. What you get with Draft Professor is daily draft content. So 7 days a week, there is a podcast on this channel that's going to give you information on the draft. So right now, we're breaking down Colorado. And on this channel, we talk about a lot of players. So there is a good chance that if the player goes in rounds 1 through 5, this channel will have talked about that player at least 3 to 7 times during the draft cycle, right? So a lot of channels will talk about the first-round guys or the top 100. We go deeper at Draft Professor. It requires a certain type of person. Not every draft analyst is comfortable going that deep. But the people on this channel, such as Andy, that's why they're here, kind of thing. And that being said, you will be able to see Andy every Tuesday with Randall Slifer. And they'll be live starting, I'm going to say it's the second Tuesday of August. I'd have to go back and look at the calendar to know if I have that exact. And starting in October, Andy and Randall will be breaking down the wide receiver class. 8 wide receivers at a time. And then every week we cover 8 more, and we repeat that for about 9 straight weeks. So that means Andy and Randall will be thumbing through approximately 72 different wide receivers to try to figure out which 30 of them get drafted. Right? And we do that for every position. So Owen, who's weekly huddle right here, Owen will be here on Wednesdays. And obviously today's Wednesday. But Owen will be here Wednesdays, and Owen's partner is Newt. And Owen and Newt will be breaking down the defensive line class, 8 players per podcast for 10 straight weeks, covering 80 defensive linemen, trying to figure out which 60 of those 80 defensive linemen get drafted, right? So we have what we would consider our watch list, and then we break the players down and we cover them in more detail than most podcast channels will. So, okay. So, yeah, Owen, I'm glad that you had wardrobe picked out, but taking care of your wife is way more important than appearing on a podcast.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying. So,
absolutely.
We can keep your seat warm for you. Okay, so I'm going to list off some other players that we have as draft eligible for Colorado. So for the people that are listening on Spotify, we'll also kind of regurgitate the list for you. So cornerback Preston Hodge, defensive lineman Quency Wiggins, defensive lineman Tawfiq Thomas, edge Keaten Wade, wide receiver Hykeem Williams, wide receiver Sincere Brown, guard Xavier Hill. Andy, any of those guys that you want to spend some time talking about and introducing them to the Draft Professor audience? And then we also had Terrell Timmons Jr.
The wide receiver room is very deep, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hit on. I saw Sincere Brown brought up. In chat. A guy that I'm very excited to see what he can do this year. It's a wide receiver room that's 4 to 5 names deep in terms of guys who will get a lot of legitimate playing time this year. But Sincere Brown, huge frame with elite production at Campbell, 1,028 yards and 12 touchdowns. Just based off the frame, I think he's 6'5". He could start foresee you be a big jump ball threat, and with that production, I mean, he's just so much more than that even. I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. I have his draft grade as an incomplete right now just because I want to see him. I'm really excited to see him at Colorado, and I want to see that before I give him a legitimate grade. Yeah.
Okay. Any other players that you'd like to point out?
Let's see here. Well, I'll touch on Quency Wiggins, who has been brought up in chat also. 6'6", 265 pounds, I'm pretty sure. Just like an elite power edge rusher frame. He was a very highly touted recruit at LSU, but has not gotten any collegiate experience in, I believe, 3 years. Or this might be his redshirt sophomore season. Either way, he's just newly draft eligible. I think he will scratch his way into the Colorado edge rusher rotation because it's really his make or break year. I mean, he is true freshman London Merritt right behind him competing for playing time. So Quency Wiggins has to put it on the field this year. But if he can, I do think he will catch a lot of scouts' eyes just because of that frame, because I think he has elite tools. But again, don't really know because we haven't seen him get onto the field. And then the other edge rusher in the rotation that'll be fun to keep an eye on is Keaten Wade, who I do have a draft grade on. He's a priority UFA just because I want to see him get some more valuable reps in his time this season. I believe he only played 5 or 6 games with legitimate snaps this past season, but he showcased a very high football IQ, won reps by just locating holes and getting pressures that way. A solid frame at 6'4", 245 pounds. Very active, high motor player. He had 2 sacks against Arizona and 1.5 against Texas Tech. So his production was very favored towards those games, which he thrived in. But he is in a stacked 4 deep rotation for edge rushers this year, and he didn't really flash any elite traits. But I'm very excited to see what he can do in that rotation this year.
Okay. Then I can see that several people are adding more names to the chat. So Mana Taimani.
Yeah, new right tackle transfer in from Ole Miss, I want to say. He'll be competing for that right tackle spot in camp with Larry Johnson III. Will be interesting to see. I didn't watch him that much, but I did when he transferred, and I watched a game of his. And there's a lot of stuff for him to work on at the moment. I just think he's right tackle depth, or maybe if he starts, I just don't see an NFL guy yet. But I think with a good season, we could be talking about that for him.
Yep. And we tend to, what we're trying to do is focus on which players we should be monitoring for the draft, as opposed to which players are going to be key contributors for Colorado. And while some of that is the same, there is a distinct difference. A great example was actually a couple Wednesdays ago. It may have even been last Wednesday when we covered Michigan. The draft community is really high on a Michigan running back. I believe it's Justice Haynes. Whereas the Michigan fans just look at him as like just a guy. But there's a lot of people that are saying he's like RB2 or RB3 in the entire draft class. Kind of thing.
Yeah, he's in my top 5 running backs.
Exactly. And like if you go back and you watch the Michigan podcast, the Michigan side of that, they don't consider him as valuable to the team as we do to the draft community. Because I don't think Haynes, based upon nearly everybody I talk to, Haynes probably isn't getting out of day 2. Yeah. Right. If he has the season, everybody's projecting those types of things. Mm-hmm. So any other players from Colorado, Andy, that you want to mention?
Another one I wanted to touch on is Xavier Hill, guard transfer from Memphis with the ability to play right tackle. But I do believe he will be starting at left guard for the Buffaloes this year. Solid NFL frame at 6'4", 318 pounds. Solid agility. Very good at clearing lanes for the quarterback to throw, which I believe last year was. Nope, I am blanking. I'm blanking on his name. I remember who it was though. but really just bad footwork from Xavier Hill and very poor anchor strength that got obliterated by power rushers. Things that he needs to improve. So I do have a UDFA grade on him right now, but it'll be good to see him get, legitimate power for starting experience at Colorado this year. He's been in college for a long time. I believe this is going to be his 6th collegiate year, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot under his belt, which will be fun to see this year. And then another one I wanted to touch on was Tawfiq Thomas, who we talked about a little earlier. Another guy who's a UDFA for me right now. Deep defensive tackle rotation with about 4 names to keep an eye on. We mentioned Jaheim Oatis, Gabriel Lightfoot, who is a Fresno State transfer, and Amari McNeil, who was a starter for the Buffs last year. Once upon a time ago, Tawfiq Thomas was a Louisville transfer, 3 years of collegiate experience, but doesn't really stand out on tape. Had an elite spin move for a couple reps, which was really good to see. Like a good counter move arsenal in his belt. 6'4", 300 pounds. I feel like he could add a lot of mass to that too, which is good. Senior. So there's stuff to work on there with Tawfiq Thomas, but I do think we could see a good year out of him if he thrives in camp, maybe he's the defensive tackle 2, but I think it's more likely he's the 3 in that rotation.
Okay. And anybody else on the Colorado team from a draft standpoint that you think people should be aware of?
I did see Savell Smalls brought up in chat, the tight end. It was rough for him last year, but I will give him slack because he was a 5-star defensive end coming into college. So he is not a natural tight end by trade. He was moved there after he flamed out at defensive end. And it is interesting to see. I think he's a really good blocker. I think he's underrated as a receiver. He will be competing for tight end reps this year with Zach Atkins, who is a very small school transfer. But yeah, Savell Smalls could be good. It just depends how much Kaidon Salter looks his way for tight ends, because Shedeur Sanders really didn't. Pat Shurmur didn't use tight ends last year in that offense. So Savell Smalls was not really given any opportunities to thrive, but I do think good frame there, good overall tools to succeed. And I do think, whenever he does declare, I'm not really sure about his eligibility, but he could be like a priority UFA kind of guy.
Yeah. So what do you think of this suggestion for quarterback from Owen?
Yeah, that's a great shout, Cannon of an arm, full court lobs. Yeah, I love it.
Cool. Well, Owen, I'm glad that you like Andy's background on the video. Because more than likely, Owen is significantly younger than me. So more than likely, most of the music behind me was made before Owen was even born. So, he can't comment on all of the music that is behind me. He has to stick with the basketball player jersey that's behind you. It's just the way the podcast world works, I think.
Yeah.
So, Andy, as you look at Colorado and what Deion Sanders has brought to the university, specifically the football program, and what this is his 3rd season as coach, 4th season as coach?
This will be his 3rd.
3rd. So what was your impression when he came in, and then how do you feel 3 years later?
Oh, I mean, overjoyed when he came in, because that was a 1-11 program he was walking into. Everything against him, turns it all around in one transfer portal, stacks a ton of talent. One name I will bring up that actually left in that portal was Jordan Tyson, the Arizona State receiver, who I currently have a very high grade on. I am one of the highest people on Jordan Tyson out there. So that's always funny to look back on. But yeah, Deion Sanders has changed the way Colorado will forever be looked at this point, in this era. And yeah, just a few years ago, we would not be talking about anyone on an NFL radar of the Buffs, and now with Deion Sanders, we are, which is very fun.
Yeah, so I had an impression of Deion Sanders, and I will say that the results in the field have definitely. I'm definitely doing, let's say, a 180 on what I thought when Colorado hired him versus the results that he has. So obviously, if you coach a player that went second overall in the NFL draft, that took a lot of coaching up to do, and Travis Hunter is a special player. So to be able to coach him up definitely caught my eye, kind of thing. And then I was also impressed when, like, all the Colorado players went to the Shrine. None of the Colorado players went to Senior Bowl last year. So to me, that had Coach Prime all over it as well. So okay, I wasn't sure if you were going to add anything versus
the. Just the Texas event versus the Alabama event. That definitely seemed like a Deion thing to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because if you like, the rumor in Mobile is that the Senior Bowl is going to move out of Mobile. The rumor with the Senior Bowl is that it's going to be less content creator and more, I don't know if professional is the right term, but they basically only want credentialed NFL media at the Senior Bowl. Right, where it's like draft professor.
That takes a lot of fun out of it.
Well, and so, draft professor, there were several of us that were at the Senior Bowl last year, but, we just applied for a Senior Bowl media credential and we got in. It sounds like they're raising the bar for that, which would relegate us to go to the Shrine game. And really, to me, the difference is if you can go to a game where there's 109 players drafted from it, you go to the game, there'll be 109 players, as opposed to the Shrine. I think maybe 20 players from the Shrine got drafted. So it's
I remember from the Shrine. Yeah, I remember from the Shrine week, the biggest standout from everyone I had talked to that was there was Johnny Walker Jr., the Michigan edge rusher, who was an undrafted guy. And we talk about the Senior Bowl, who the biggest standout there was likely Gray Zabel, who was a top 18 pick.
Okay, so while Owen and I are chatting about music while the podcast is going on, we are going to close the podcast down. For Andy, myself, Owen, I hope your wife is doing better. Thanks for stopping by the chat. For Owen, the 85 podcasters at Draft Professor, thank you so much for watching, everybody. And we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow when we cover Baylor and TCU.